Continuing our community focus reports now with the mayor of New Bedford, John Mitchell. John, thanks so much for giving us just a couple minutes of your time during what has been a hectic time. Let's first start with this: the last 24 to 48 hours, what your team, is preaching to the members of your community, and what's at the forefront of your minds right now.
Well, Maury, it's a multifaceted effort, of course, and it's different in different cities. Here in Greater New Bedford, at once we haven't seen nearly as many cases as a lot of other cities, but at the same time, we have a more elderly population, at least a population that skews more elderly and therefore are more vulnerable. And so, we are, attempting at once to carefully track community transmission, at the same time to protect our vulnerable populations, at the same time to do everything we can to push out as much information as possible so people understand what they can do to protect themselves and their families.
Well, what is that message that you're trying to reinforce to the community members of the Greater New Bedford area?
Yeah, I think it starts with the messaging around social distancing. We've had this March has been a long month. As you think back to where we were at the beginning of the month, people knew about coronavirus and knew about China and Italy, but and then so its arrival here has been so abrupt, and we have attempted to get everybody to behave in a way that they're not used to, which is to stay away from other people. And that's really tough. It defies our need to connect with other people, but it's an absolute must. And if you talk to anybody in Italy, they tell you the sooner you do that effectively, the more lives you will save. It's really that simple. And so, my message to folks is, as awkward as it is, we have to do this. And here are the things that we have to refrain from doing, which is pretty much everything that draws us within 6 feet of one another for more than just a couple of seconds. But at the same time, people can still go out and walk. People can go out and take a bike ride. We see a lot of that going on, yard work, all those things. And it all has to be sort of self-reinforcing in our neighborhoods and across our city and across our region. People have to encourage others to do that, and also to point out when folks aren't playing by the rules. So that's the single biggest thing, and it all sort of boils down to one thing: stay at home unless you've got a really good reason not to.
In order to get the word out, get your message across to all the members in your community, there was an alert system that I think you guys put in place called the ND Alert. What have been some of the feedback that you've received on that, and how has that kind of helped get your message across, quickly to all of the members of your community?
Well, it's our efforts aren't limited to one medium. We've done countless television interviews like this, and have been on the radio usually more than twice a day. Newspaper, social media, Facebook Live, all that stuff. And we have been doing robocalls as well, because even through all those other channels, you don't hit everybody. And there is value in repetition. And again, we're trying to cultivate a change in behavior here that is absolutely necessary, but hard to do, hard to internalize. And we've had to do it over a fairly short period of time. So, the more that I can be out there and just explain to people why we're doing this, why it connects up with the larger needs of the city and of the country is absolutely paramount.
We were talking off camera beforehand that you guys have some less confirmed amount of cases than maybe some neighboring towns and cities. But there are still other challenges that face New Bedford. What are those, and how are you guys trying to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, no two places are the same, and our economic boundaries are sort of right around New Bedford and its suburbs. Just as the same goes for Providence, the same goes for other metro areas, large and small. Those economic boundaries also define the epidemiological links. When people are interacting with one another for business reasons of any sort, they also pose the risk of transmitting the virus. So that's why New York is the center of this disease, because it's also in the United States, because it's also the center of the U.S. economy in the United States. Boston is another big center, obviously. So, for us, we have fewer cases. There are about 10 cases as we speak. There were 3 in the city proper. We're working hard to undertake contact tracing for each of those positive hits. But we know that we are not nearly as far along the transmission curve as other places. The vulnerability we have is with certain populations that are themselves vulnerable. Many seniors live here. We have many people who have underlying health conditions, and they are particularly susceptible to disease transmission, and we're doing everything we can to protect them, whether it's to put protocols into place about entering their facilities or just heightened degrees of cleanliness and hygiene, check-ins with them. I mean, it really runs the gamut, and so we're really trying to get them to hunker down and weather the storm, however long it lasts.
I also wanted to touch on education with you and the distance learning that's going on now with kids K through 12. What's some of the feedback that you maybe heard about the distance learning, if you've heard them, and what are those continued efforts to make sure kids are staying on top of their schoolwork and doing what they need to do?
Well, it's not a perfect substitute for the real thing. We'd rather have kids in the classroom interacting with one another and their teachers, but we're doing the best we can. I think it's a little easier to pull off at the higher grades and the high school grades in particular, because all of those students, at least here in New Bedford, are equipped with laptops. Some of the middle schoolers are as well. For students that don't have laptops and can't readily check in with their teachers, what we're trying to do is to ensure that we're still delivering some meaningful learning opportunities to them. We're passing out packets. We're taking, the teachers are available for at least some indirect instruction. But we really need parents to play their role in that effort to ensure that their kids know that it's not summer vacation, early this year, that they're still in school, they still have to learn, and all the while we're distributing school meals and just doing everything we can to ensure that kids are safe in the city.
Mayor, we appreciate a couple minutes of your time, and for those who are watching, if they look to find out some other information about neighboring cities across southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island, we encourage you to head to our website at WPRI.com.